Good morning. It's great to be here. Dominic told me that I cannot possibly go over time, so I will do my best. Thank you for the invitation and for the kind introduction, Dominic. So I would like to start with a question. Who are the people that impress you most, that impress us most? Since we are at DLD, I would guess the answer would look something like this. You know, the entrepreneurial heroes of our times. A lot of Americans that shape the world as it is today and as it will be tomorrow. What is it that we found so impressive and so fascinating about these people? I think it's two things, basically. It's vision plus action. What I mean by that is, with the vision part, they see transformations. They see a new reality that is coming, that a lot of us do not see. They ask the big questions, the what-if questions. What if we could have a computer on every desk? What if we could organize the world's information? What would be possible if we connected everybody on the same social platform? And the action part is, they don't just stop talking about it. They're not just public lecturers about this. They actually get their hands dirty. They create organizations. They revolutionize industries. They make a step into the unknown. They take personal risk. They do stuff with their own skin in the game. And at the beginning, everybody thinks they're ridiculous. And once they are successful, everyone thinks what they do is normal. They usually introduce the things that for a lot of us have always been there, like smartphones, right? I find all of these guys very, very impressive too. But I'm also a really big fan of this guy. Does anybody know who that is? I know that at DLD, any name you put up there will be Googled within 5.4 seconds, you know, on the smartphones. So I put up an image. No idea? OK. This is a businessman that created an organization with a radically new idea around 150 years ago. And he did what every entrepreneur did. He found allies. He built a team. He found funding. He had to fight off intrigues and humiliation, just like any other entrepreneur. Today, 100 million people work for his organization. And most of them are unpaid. And I would think that each of you has been touched by his organization at some point. This is Henri Dunant, the founder of the International Red Cross. He walked the battlefields of Solferino 150 years ago with 40,000 soldiers dead or injured and no infrastructure whatsoever to help them. And he was so shocked that he came up with this radically new idea that we should help everybody, no matter which uniform they carry, no matter where they come from, on which side of a conflict they stand. He asked, what if we cared about these people unconditionally? And he knew that the only way to realize this is to create a private, neutral organization. And that's what he did. And that's the thing for which he received the first Nobel Peace Prize that was ever awarded to anybody in 1901. So again, it's vision, it's action. The only difference here is probably that social entrepreneurs have a vision that is much more directly related to the most pressing social issues that we have. Eradicating poverty, eradicating hunger, solving all kinds of basic problems in this country, but in any other country of the world. And the other difference, I guess, when they are really, really successful, they don't get rich. There are no big exits here to make. This is just for the social impact. So this session is about 15 entrepreneurs, 15 crazy social entrepreneurs. So I would like to keep my word and run you through a list, through 15 social entrepreneurs that impress me tremendously, that are a little bit crazy in the if question, what if questions that they ask, that are fantastic, incredible to work with. Ashoka supports pretty much all of them as Ashoka Fellows, and they're in no particular order, you know? And they're just today's list. I keep falling in love with social entrepreneurs all the time, so tomorrow's list will look very different from the one that I show you today. So you saw my first one already, Henri Dunant, from the Red Cross. Let's go to number 2. This is Simon Berry. He asked the questions, what if you could get medication to any corner of the world? I mean, think about it. You can buy a bottle of Coke, for example, in the last village in Africa. It's no problem. The logistics is there. But at the same time, 600,000 children die every year because of diarrhea, which is incredibly easy to deal with a bit of medication, but it has to be there on the spot where the disease is. And so Simon Berry combined these two thoughts, and he built a small container that fits exactly in the space between Coke bottles in a casket. That's what it looks like. And he partnered with Coca-Cola, and last year, the state of Zambia in Africa ordered 500,000 of these containers to ship them across the whole country. It's a revolution for the logistics of their medical drugs. Number two, another one about medicine. This is Miguel Luengo, and he asked the question, what if we could speed up malaria diagnosis by hundreds of times? The thing with malaria is, to detect malaria parasites in an individual, you have to look at a blood sample, and you have to detect the parasites, and that's usually done under a microscope by a specialist. But there are way too few specialists in the world to do that. So his idea was, why don't we do what NASA does when they put out their space images to the web and ask people to look for planets? So he just pushes out the images of the blood samples and turns it into a mobile game. So instead of shooting aliens, you now shoot malaria parasites on an image. And at the same time, you identify malaria parasites in the body of an actual individual, and you fight malaria while playing a mobile game. Over 100 countries are now involved with users to detect the malaria parasites, and the speed of identification is incredible. Number four, crowdsourcing. I guess a lot of you know this guy. He's been at the DLD, I think, 1 or 2 times already. His idea was, what if everybody could stay overnight at everybody else's place so that we build more tolerance and understanding and trust between the peoples? So in 1999, he came up with the idea of couchsurfing, and he founded the organization in 2003. But think about it. Without people like him, who took it from the social side, there would have been no Airbnb. Airbnb was created 5 years after this organization was founded and turned his insight and his idea into a $25 billion business and into a nightmare for hotels, as you know. Number 5. There are around 100 million street children in the world, talking about shelter. So Arnaud Raskin from Belgium asked, what if we stop treating them as victims? And so he came up not only with mobile schools that teach them directly on the streets, 50,000 of them every year. He also created a company called Streetwise. And today, companies like BASF and Nike book corporate trainings with him and his street kids because they realize that street kids can show them, the employees, a lot of critical business skills, like resilience, positive focus. Number 6, also about the weak and how we can use their talents. This is Frank Hoffman. He's a gynecologist from Germany, and he asked the question, what if we used the talents of the blind to detect breast cancer? So he started training blind women to become medical tactile examiners to detect breast cancer with women. And it turns out they can do it cheaper, they can do it faster, they can do it with more time for the patients, they get a job for themselves, and they kill the stigma of the blind as deficient. It's a win-win-win. Number 7, Torkild Sonne from Denmark. He asked, can people with autism use their talent to become consultants for businesses? His company, Specialisterne, works with businesses like SAP because it turns out autists are incredibly good at quality testing in software development. This is one of the advertisements, right? Autists can do stuff that none of us can do. And so he turned a problem, a weakness, into a competitive advantage. Number 8, he's been at DLD a couple of times too. Raoul Krauthausen. He asked, what if we could make the world accessible for wheelchair users by the input of everybody? So he created Wheelmap. Wheelmap is an online map built on OpenStreetMap where every smartphone user who sits in a cafe can rate it for accessibility. And they can rate cafes or pharmacies or public institutions or cinemas. And over the last 6 years, 600,000 places have been rated by Wheelmap users. It's an incredible contribution to inclusion. Number 9, Ursula Sladek, a mother of 5 who was shocked by Chernobyl in 1986 and decided and asked the question, what if citizens themselves could own and run their own energy production? So she created EWS, a social business company that immediately disrupted the pricing and policy monopoly of large utility companies. And she basically pioneered the green energy movement in Germany and built the blueprint of what we call today the Energiewende. Number 10, also one about public infrastructure. In Lima's largest slums, around 1,000 tons of garbage is generated every day, and the city can only collect like half of it. It's a disaster for the environment and for health. So Albina Ruiz from Peru asked, what if we turn garbage collection in slums into a profitable micro business? And so she worked with the poor, excluded garbage collectors and turned what they do into an actual respectable profession with health insurance, with representation, creative marketing, and education. And today she reaches 30% of the population in Peru and has changed the lives of 6 million people across Latin America. Number 11, in India, there is a well-known rickshaw mafia that makes sure that the 10 million rickshaw pullers do not own their own rickshaws and get very little money out of the revenue that they generate. So they can hardly take care of their families. So he asked, what if we turn them into small businesses, self-owned businesses? And so he built a new rickshaw, designed a new rickshaw, cheaper, better, and he built the rickshaw bank, which leases these rickshaws back to the pullers until they actually own them and can take care of their families properly over a long time. Around 2,000 rickshaws are now owned by their pullers themselves. You touched on it, Steffi. Mohamed Yunus, as we talk about financial innovation, his idea was, what if we turned loans into a means to eradicate poverty? And so he built the Grameen Bank, the foundation of the global billion-dollar microfinance industry that we know today. As you know, in 2006, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work. Number 13 and 14, one that brings us back to the web, and that shows how social entrepreneurs build actually on each other. Matt Flannery and Jessica Jackley wondered, could we do what Yunus invented on the web? Could we do microloans with a single click of a mouse? And so they created Kiva, the largest microlending platform on the web. So instead of giving $25 to a charity, you can lend with one click of a mouse $25 to a woman building a business in Africa, for example. Around 2 million business owners have received loans through the platform, around $800 million. Last one, you know him, Jimmy Wales. He wondered, could we put all the world's information together and made it accessible to everybody? And so he created Wikipedia, which is the prime example of crowdsourcing itself. And if you calculate in invested man-hours, it's one of the biggest works of human history. Over 100 million hours of work has been put into the Wikipedia. So, seeing these examples, you might understand why I love working for Ashoka. I work with these kinds of people every day, and we have selected more than 3,000 across 80 countries to work with them. We're pretty much like a VC, We give them support in any kind so that they can scale what they're doing. It's a bit like the opposite of reading the news, working with them. It's a platform of optimism, of empathy and action, and all run by entrepreneurs. And it's actually fantastic to work for this because it gives meaning to my own life and how I can create the world of tomorrow for my own children. And this is why we partner with DLD. Because I really believe that each of you is trying to do the same thing. You want to use your talents to make the world a better place. And this is a very good way to do it, with the incredible resources that are in this room, as investors, as entrepreneurs, and as there's the experts that you are. So what if we all work together and made sure these ideas scale? If you want to see more, come tonight to the Ashoka Changemaker celebration, where you see the 6 new fellows that have been selected in Germany today. And come tomorrow, where half of the program is circled around more social entrepreneurs, more Ashoka fellows that came here to show what they have to show. So you can support them and work with them with their entrepreneurial platform. Watch them, see the future. Enjoy DLD. Thanks. You're welcome.